Welcome to the Health Coach Nation podcast. My name is Hailey Rowe, and I'm a sales and marketing coach and LinkedIn lead generation service provider. I work with health, life, and mindset coaches and online service-based business owners to help them get more sales, shift their time to the client-generating activities instead of just the busy work, and overcome that social media overwhelm. Let's get into the show. If you're ready to take on your next paying clients, I have good news. My free 4 Basics of Client Attraction and How to Stand Out class is live at haileyrowe.com/client-attraction. In the class, you're going to learn the top 2 traits I recommend for most coaches and entrepreneurs if they really want to turn this into a career. You're going to learn how you can build demand for your services and stop getting crickets on your posts. You're going to learn the sales roadmap I used to improve my sales conversion rate and help my clients do the same. And you're going to learn so much more. So go to haileyrowe.com/client-attraction and get your copy of the class today. Her podcast, which she will share the title of in just a second. But now we're going to talk about email strategies that has helped Megan triple her client bookings. And I know many of you are using email marketing, or you want to be, or you want to make a lead magnet that captivates people. So we're going to dig into some email tips. Megan, why don't you just start by introducing yourself and how you got into copywriting?
Yes. So I have been copywriting for over 6 years now, and I just love helping people actually articulate their brilliance, because it can be so hard to talk about yourself sometimes. And even I think marketers struggle to do their own marketing, because it's different when you are so close and emotionally invested to your business. So even if you're a good writer, it can be hard to write for yourself. And it's been so much fun to support people and book out their programs and really truly feel authentic in their messaging that they are putting out there into the world.
I love that. Yes. And even, sometimes we could be great copywriters, but by the end of the day, we're just tired and we've already used all of our brain energy.
Yep.
Coaching client. I know for me, I'll be like, ooh, I was in a client session and this is such a great idea for a post. And then it comes time to actually do it. And I'm like, oh, I'm so beat. I don't want to do that right now. I don't want to write out what I had to say. And so I think you guys, you copywriters out there, make lives much easier. So when you say share your message in an authentic way, I think that brings up a really good topic for us to kick off with, because I hear a lot of coaches and service providers who feel like, I want my content to convert. I want people to reach out to me and book services or book a discovery call, but I don't want to come across as too salesy, or this post doesn't sound like me because it's a template or something like that. So how do we address how do you define communicating authentically while still converting?
Yes. So it is a fine balance. So you want to, I think tangibly, the best way to sound like yourself is to tell stories. Often my first drafts of my own content and copy is I'm going on a walk around my neighborhood, and I'm texting my thoughts so that it naturally does sound like me, because I'm just talking naturally. And then when I sit down at my computer, I have this first draft here that now I can just edit and apply copywriting techniques, formulas, best practices to, and then whip it up into an email, a social post, whatever it happens to be, and get it out there a little bit more quickly and naturally. And it feels like a good, kind of workflow to get it out there in a way that is going to convert, because it's I don't want to have to try and think about sounding like myself and then thinking about, okay, how is this going to convert, is a separate brain almost. So I like that I'm getting my initial thoughts out on a walk, and then I'm physically in a separate place. I'm back at my computer when I'm thinking about conversion. How can I edit this to get a really strong hook that is going to capture people's attention and make them want to read more? How can I logically flow to this call to action that I want to have? So I'm not trying to do those two things at the same time. I really separate them And then it feels a lot easier to make both happen when I'm not trying to do them at the same time.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a great tip. And I think sometimes people trip themselves up before they even start because they're overthinking, oh, I got to tie in this call to action or whatever.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the emails, right? You were saying you have 3 strategies that helped you triple your bookings. So let's break those down. What are those?
Yeah. So I feel like these aren't talked about as much as they should be. But what I've seen from my clients in Copy Critique Club, which is a membership where I'm just auditing their emails, their sales pages, their websites, like batch of social posts, like whatever they want to send me and get audited. And so for emails specifically, we have noticed numbers increase when they, one, personalize their subject lines and openers. So that just means, like, for example, use the recipient's name in the subject line of your email. So in your email service provider, you can say first name and like whatever the trigger is to, like, so it'll actually say Hailey or Megan or, whatever their name is. And so personalizing that content, it makes it feel more personal and human, especially when, like, we're in this high volume, noisy inbox. They're getting a lot of getting a lot of emails. That is a way to, it just naturally, like, there's a subconscious psychology there that is happening of like, oh, it makes it feel like more of a conversation. They're talking to me. So if it's automated, for sure, that is one way to do it. If it's, for example, like we were just talking about, like something on LinkedIn, still use, their first name, but then also continue to personalize it of, like, reference a recent interaction or, so-and-so highly recommended you, or show that you understand their needs, have at least read their profile. I love this, how you said this, something like that. And just making it feel really personal feels so honestly refreshing in a world where I feel like we're constantly bombarded by these impersonal chat GPT'd messages. And I think too, having a customer database, like I just do keep it simple in Asana, but if you use ClickUp, Airtable, whatever, to like remember personal details of a conversation, if you've had a conversation with them before, to be able to personalize as much as possible. So that's a way to do it both manually and kind of at mass.
I love that. Awesome. All right. So personalization, take us to, is that tip number 2 now?
So then number 2 is going to be the power of the PS, the postscript. So I think so many people overlook this, and it's really prime real estate in the email. It's actually one of the most read parts of it, because a well-placed PS can drive home the final call to action or offer something extra that piques curiosity, or even just give, if it's just a value-based email, just kind of like a 1-sentence summary. Here's the gist of it. Because oftentimes, people are reading through their emails, scrolling on their phone, like while in the pickup line at school for their kids, or like in the grocery store, or like whatever else. Like they're not giving it their full attention. So oftentimes they're just scrolling down and then we'll just read the PS. So it's really important to, 1, include it, and then 2, make sure that it is either a 1-sentence summary of what you were talking about or reinforcing the CTA. Another good thing I like about the PS is that, so if it's like a selling email, oftentimes in selling emails, you put a button there, in a bright color, click here now to buy XYZ. But we've actually split tested using a button versus using just a hyperlink. Keeping it as text. And for some clients who have more of like a personalized like relationship with their audience, they know them super well, it feels super intimate, they share a little bit more like appropriately vulnerably with their audience, they found that hyperlinks actually work better than buttons. Just because it feels like a natural part of the conversation you're having in the email. And so the PS is another natural way to include that hyperlink if you're having a CTA in your email, whether that's selling or following you on Instagram or whatever your call to action is. So always include a PS in your emails, even for casual follow-ups. And it's just nice to feel like, oh, it's a personal note to the reader.
Love that. Yeah. And I always, when I'm looking at clients' emails or we're using, templates that I give and stuff like that, I do have a PS and like almost all the emails, but I realize I don't really we should highlight why. And that is skim readers. People have that short attention span. They might scroll to the bottom and like, what's the takeaway I need? So you've really highlighted that. And I love that you've seen data wise like that. And that converts better and that does better. So what is tip number 3?
So number 3 is consistent follow-up with your leads. And so this applies both like manually following up, and then also obviously you can automate an email sequence, whether that's your email sequence or just a nurture sequence or an abandoned cart email sequence that can be automated in your email service provider of choice. But as we know, follow-up is critical. They say the fortune is in the follow-up. Because many potential clients are interested, but maybe not ready to buy at the first touch, right? They say 7 to 10 touches before a sale. And like, honestly, in today's climate, I think it's even more just with I feel like there just is so much more mistrust. I think especially within the coaching industry. So it might take a few more touches and really, really incredible messaging as well. But the consistent follow-up is what keeps you top of mind, and it builds your relationship over time. You're playing the long game here. And what I love and what I've seen, like so many people have thanked me actually for following up with them because they've been busy. Life has happened. They were meaning to reach out. I was on their brain, but just, life gets busy. And so I think we feel like I don't want to annoy them. I don't want to be too much. I don't want to be salesy. But like, actually, if you think about when you have been followed up with, like it can make you feel like loved and pursued and known because they remembered your conversation, which like all those things are very human longings. And so we talked about this a little bit when Hailey was on my podcast, but like I think we get a little put off because we've been followed up with or sent messages where like people don't do it in the best way. And you're like, I never want to be that person. But there are ways to do these non-salesy check-ins that could be creating nurture emails that provide value and you're not necessarily constantly pushing for a sale. Providing helpful resources in your follow-ups, checking in on their progress. How are they doing? They said they had XYZ goal. How are they doing on achieving that? Or maybe you have an interesting update that aligns with their needs. I recently reconnected with a Facebook ads manager, and we talked initially maybe 3 years ago. And so we keeping in touch with each other because there's so much overlap between needing good copywriting for ads and the email sequences that follow. And we just have such complementary services. And like we've developed a friendship too as well. Like the tone is often light and conversational and it focuses on connection rather than pressure. Like release the outcomes of what happens. I feel like just have fun meeting new people in your business. We often overcomplicate it when really it just comes back to like being a good person, talking to someone as if you were, hanging out with them in real life. And relationships are just so important, and use those follow-ups as a way to love on them more. You can use tools to help those follow-ups feel timely. There's ways you can automate it in your email sequence when the time is right for that. But even just doing it manually when you're first starting out or before you want to deal with all the tech behind that. But yeah, I would say use the follow-up to make them feel loved, pursued, and known as you like remember the conversations that you've had in the past.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And that brings me to another question because agreed on all of this. And I think too, people feel like, oh my gosh, it's a waste of time if I connect with all these people and they're not ready to sign up. But you have to remember there is a sales cycle and there is and also you have to remember the connections you build from the standpoint of like partnerships, like you're talking about, Megan. It's never it's not always transactional. Like, every partner you meet isn't going to send you a referral, but cumulatively, the more people you know, the more of a connector you are, the more value you can bring to your people in your circle, the more people will remember you and it will come back to you in different ways. And it may not always be in the ways that you think, and it may not be in the timing that you think it's going to happen,
Mhm.
but it's interesting to just the way I see it is more like it's a whole garden. I don't need every flower and plant within it to like for me to know how that's going to play out, but I want to make sure I'm harvesting a garden so that it's not one plant in my garden because oh,
Yes.
it's a lot. It's not a lot, right? So
That's a perfect analogy.
I'm bringing out really weird analogies today. On like podcast, I brought up a turd, and I'm so embarrassed about that. Okay,
I love
so
it.
let's move on. Okay, emails and social media posts, different things, different audiences reading them. What suggestions do you have when it comes to? Can we just take our emails and copy and paste them and plop them in a social media post? Should we shorten them? Do we change the topic? Is it okay to repeat? Like, tell us more about what do we need to think about when we're trying to have both types of content? Can we just duplicate, or what do you think?
Yeah, so I say keep it simple. Keep it simple. That is my number one value. So I don't think that you need to totally change everything. Maybe just change, like, sometimes I'll use my subject line as the hook in the social post. Sometimes I'll just take the email as it is and not even use the subject line, and just the hook of the email is the hook of the social post. And then there's always maybe a little bit of editing to do in the call to action. So, because like obviously you can't necessarily put a hyperlink in there. You might say see link in first comment or link in bio or whatever it is. So I like to pay attention to doing that because I've seen people where it's like, click this link, and then it's just like, oh, clearly you just copied and pasted this, or it's like still like, hey, first name. So you obviously want to take care there so that it's intentional for the social media post. But I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel. If you like what you wrote in that email and it's good, then put it on social media too. And I think a big fear around this, what people have shared with me over the years, is that like, I don't want to be annoying. I don't want to be repetitive. I don't want to, like, what if someone realizes that I posted the same exact thing and copied and pasted it on my social that was on my email this morning? And honestly, I've noticed when people do that, and I'm just like, cool. I love hearing from you again. Or like, that was really great copy. Like, I enjoy reading it again. Or I know I want to work with you in the future. So like, it's cool to have that like reinforced. And as a former teacher, like how people learn, like if you just see it once, it's harder for it to stay in your brain. But the more times you are exposed to a concept, so whether you're educating your post or sharing about an offer, the more times people hear about it, the more it's going to stick in their brain, especially if they're feeling like, oh, I think this is for me. And honestly, I think people can feel like, oh, I keep seeing this. It keeps popping up for me. It's a sign. It's like one of those nudges of like, okay, maybe this is something that I should like look into further, check out the sales page, things like that. So I think really only good things come from repurposing it. And say similarly, like you only have so many hours in the day, so create your pillar content and then repurpose the heck out of that, and don't worry about what people think, because honestly it's usually going to be positive.
Yeah. It's making it more convenient for them too. Like if I get an email I want to read, but then I see it somewhere else, I'm like, oh, cool. I don't have to go back to my email, open it, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
Okay. So one other question that I get a lot is like, social media posts to coaches and service providers who love their craft, but they don't consider themselves a marketer. it takes them so long, and it feels so like this process just takes me forever. Part of it's because it's a new skill that they're learning, but the other part of it is just it doesn't come naturally to them. So, what would you say to someone who's like, "It takes me frickin' forever, Megan. How do I is there a way to, like, streamline this or make this easier for myself or take less time and not be such a perfectionist over my posts?"
Yes. So overthinking it is like the most common thing that happens for so many people. And I feel like at every level, there's like a new thing to overthink. So how can we train our brains to like just go for it, just do it, just write it? And what it comes down to is if this is taking forever, it is very likely the case that you are trying to create and destroy at the same time, which is hard to do. So what I mean by that is like you're trying to create, you're trying to write and produce ideas and get words on the page, while at the same time you're also trying to edit your thoughts, edit your ideas, edit the words on the page, which is the destruction process. And so to try and do those at the same time, it's like this constant tug of war and you're getting nowhere. So I would really encourage separating those. Be okay with the ugly, rough first draft. Like, let the first draft just be brain dump on the page, just word vomit, just get it all out. It doesn't have to be pretty. It's not going to be pretty. It's okay and normal. Like, even published authors, even prolific, writers, it always starts with this ugly first draft. And that doesn't mean you're a bad writer. It's just part of the process. It's a normal part of the process. No one gets it right the first time. So once you get it out of your head, and some people like to sit down and write, other people are like, I want to go for a walk and get outside and talk to text as I go and just like verbally process almost. Other people are just like, as you're on the go, you just like keep ideas in this like notes on your phone so that when you sit down to write, you're like, you don't have to be like, what do I even say? Like there it is already on your notes for you. So you have the ideas. And then I actually like to physically go to a different place when I then sit down to edit. So maybe I was walking outside for my initial draft process, like my word vomit process. And then I sit down inside my house at my computer for my editing process where I can edit in the hook, the call to action, make sure it all makes sense. Even if you're like, I'm going to sit in my office for the writing process and I'm going to sit in my kitchen counter for the editing process, like something about having that different space to get your head in that different space, something about the physical helping the mental, I think can be helpful so that you don't try and do both at the same time because you're trying to speed up the process, but it's actually slowing it down.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, great tips. I love that. And I had a client once who really defined herself as a verbal processor. And so
Yes.
she would send me voice notes, and that's how we started to make her content. Like she'd send me voice notes of an idea or what she's thinking, but she couldn't stream it all together, or she didn't know how to expand on it, or she didn't know how to tie her call to action. And then we kind of go back and forth. So I'd give her a prompt or something like that. And so it can be also helpful sometimes to have someone like Megan who writes posts for you or audits or, that kind of thing, or myself who audits my client stuff. And I think that can make a difference as well. Because once you start to realize like, oh, like this is kind of the flow we usually follow, or this, we reproduce this post and it wasn't as hard as I thought, then you kind of get in the momentum of it. But sometimes starting is that hardest part. So one of the other things I wanted to ask you is messaging and the fact that you say, oh, messaging is so important, right? That it's clear that it's, related to what your niche wants. But I think it also is very vague. And so I wanted to see if you had an example of like a client's message that worked really well versus like maybe what it was before, or like, can you give us an example of like, what's a good message? How do we know, right?
Yeah, that's a really good question because Yeah, I agree. I feel like you need good messaging. It's like this like vague thing that's thrown out there, but they're like, what exactly does that mean? So I think if I could only say one thing about that, I would say you have to be specific. The more specific you can get, the more it's really going to resonate with people. So specific in terms of who you are talking to. Like, even if you're like, okay, women, okay, but what kind of women? Moms is more specific, but get even more specific than that. Is that like new postpartum moms? Is that moms of teenagers? Is that moms who are now empty nesters? Like what what kind of mom are you talking to there? So getting super specific in who you're talking to, and then also painting the picture of what that kind of before and after looks like. So not just saying getting more clients, but um, you're getting the Stripe notifications in your email, or the Voxer messages are constantly bombarding your phone, or you get to support, like how you support clients in this way. Like what does that actually look like for you in your day to day? And I mean, even documenting your process of working with clients, or sharing, here's what we talked about today, or here's what, a key thing we learned, or what we did in this program or in this offer, and just sharing a little bit of the behind the scenes is a way to start to get more specific of like, but what does it actually look like? So don't just say to get to the next level. That's super general, right? But what does that next level actually look like for them? Because for different people, getting to the next level could look like different things. A beginner entrepreneur, the next level could look like getting to 5K months or 10K months. For a more experienced entrepreneur, the next level could be buying back their time and having more peace of mind while their business still runs. So what does that next level look like for your ideal client? So the more specific you can get, the better. Paint that picture.
Yeah, yeah. And oh my gosh, one of the things, so we do an exercise, I have a jump. Sometimes my clients don't even have an offer yet, or they're like haven't clarified it yet. And so I have this jumpstart offer worksheet. And one of the things we go through when it comes to the marketing language is like share a benefit, but now take me to how that's impacting their day to day, like just like you said.
Yes.
So saying something like, be so confident that you can walk into any networking group and confidently share your elevator pitch without shakes in your voice or something, like one of the things that has always helped me, and I don't remember where I learned it, but there's kind of like 3 things you could tack on to a sentence to make it more, as you were saying, like tangible. And those are so what I mean is like, be so confident, or have the confidence you've always wanted, so that you can finally go to the beach in a bikini without, blah, 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 whatever. So that the other one is even if, so that's dismissing what's their objection or problem, or like thing they're worried why they're not gonna reach the goal. Even if what would be one that comes to mind? Even if
you've already read all the books and listened to all the podcasts on this topic.
There you go. Right. They're like, oh, I know everything. Right. Or then the last one would be without. So achieve this goal without insert something they would hate, or that, I don't know, anything you want to add to that one?
Yeah. So like a lot of my people, they know they have to market, but they don't want to do it on social media. So how to, run your business without having to be on social media, how to get more clients without necessarily having to be on social media.
Nice.
Or Instagram particularly.
Yeah.
Without having to show up on stories every single day.
Yes. Love that. I love it. Okay. So this has been super helpful. Where can everybody connect with you, find out more about your work and all that good stuff? Yes.
So it is best to connect with me at copywritingforcoachespodcast.com. haileyandrowe.com, and that will bring you to all of the things. And you can also check out my podcast as well, which Hailey is a guest on, and that is the best place to connect. And then, all the things are connected there, so you can find my website or connect with me on social from there as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being here. Thank you for your very tangible tips. Thanks so much for listening to this podcast. And if it's really helpful for you, I'd really appreciate if you share it and or leave a written podcast review. This tells the podcast sites that our show is useful and it will be promoted to more people that way. Thanks again.